Be
Hey,
like,
what's
yeah,
going
that,
on, guys? I appreciate you popping in. I definitely got my friend and fraternity brother, which that actually kind of worked out long term. Um,
yes, sir.
to speak a little bit about this Turo platform. So, if anyone's been following anything from the pandemic, that was one of the opportunities from a supply and
Go
demand
upstairs.
aspect that really kind of took off, especially with the shortage of used cars, in addition to um, the used car market that affected the rental car market, that prices went up in the rental car market. And so Turo, as a platform, kind of took off. So, Mike, kind of tell me, how did you get connected with Turo? How did you get started? What did you do before?
Okay, so to break down a long story, make it a shorter story. Basically, I worked in the rental car space already. I worked at Enterprise Rent a Car for the last 6 years. Well, from 2015 to 2021. So those 6 years, and basically, I've always just had like an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always been a hard worker. So I've always had a job, but I've always wanted to work for myself and learn how to create businesses and things like that. It's just something that's been like in me since I was younger. But basically, yeah, I worked at Enterprise, and with the urge to move on and experience different things, basically, I kind of took a leap. But before I took that leap, I did research. So, like you were saying, I realized that there was a car shortage, like a national car shortage, period.
Right.
And so, in turn, there was going to be a rental car shortage. And with me having, some background and some knowledge about the field, I felt comfortable with doing it. But
Mhm.
before I actually just jumped out the window and left my job and everything, I acquired some mentors, both paid and free via
Mhm.
YouTube.
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, and I just learned as much as I could about the industry from a different perspective. I worked in it as a worker at Enterprise, but just from a different perspective, I wanted to see how it worked. Once I felt like I had enough information about it and was comfortable enough to do it, I just took the leap, and I went and purchased me some cars, and I just got it popping.
So yeah, you definitely make it sound so simple, and everybody
Yeah.
knows, especially with that business, and especially with how people are acquiring the car. Like, how does Turo work? First of all, you put your car. Is it like
So,
Airbnb for cars, or what? How does that
yep.
actually work?
That's a great way to put it. Airbnb for cars. It's basically a peer-to-peer. Sorry, I kind of talk a little fast. I'm from
No
Chicago,
problem.
but it's a peer-to-peer platform that basically anybody can put up a vehicle and rent it out to other people. Basically, it just has to fit the parameters that they have set forth. Basically, they want you to have um a newer. I won't say newer, but a vehicle that's within 15 years or newer,
Mhm.
and with a certain mileage, under a certain mileage
Okay.
limitation. So
Okay.
as long as you have a car that fits the bill, doesn't have any open recalls or anything like that, or any major damage to it, you can upload it to Turo and rent it out to other people. So that's
So
that's
how
that's
does
the
it?
gist of it.
Okay. So when you're renting out to other people, can you turn down a person, or is it just if they select it, it's theirs? Like, do you
Yeah.
have
So I
autonomy
mean,
on it?
it's your Yeah, you have full autonomy. You can set your own pricing. You can set, who rents the car. It's your property. So you have that option for sure. Me personally, I try to rent it out to everybody. I look at this as a real business, and this is
Mhm.
what I'm gonna be looking at to, help me support myself and my family and everything. So, I try to get everybody. If you can make it onto the platform, because Turo, to join Turo as a driver, you have to upload your license and everything, and they do an instant background check on you. And
Okay.
so if you pass the background check, meaning you have a somewhat clean driving record, then you can join, and you can start to rent out
Okay.
other people's cars. Yeah. So they do
Okay.
the
So just to
pre-screening and
drive,
everything.
you have to have a background or pretty decent driving history.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So they do the pre-screening, and yeah, as long as when you request one of my cars, if just approach it in a professional way. Hey, Mike, I appreciate you letting me rent your car, or whatever you might say. As long as you seem like a cool person, you don't seem like you're sketchy. I accept. So that's just my personal
Right.
philosophy. But yeah, Turo is a pretty good place to, if you did want to just make some extra money. Like I said, I look at it as a business, but you don't have to look at it as a business. You can just look at it hey, I want a way to, kind of leverage my property and help supplement some of my bills. You know what I mean? So offset a little bit of my bills, not pay them all, which is what I try to do. So,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's a very interesting concept because I mean, we're in personal finance here in the group, and I mean, next to the not really the house, but the highest typical debt next to student loans that most people, nearly everybody has, is the car. And the thing that makes the car so bad is because it depreciates, right? So
Yep.
it's really trying to understand the concept of how all this works because I've heard it a couple different ways. I've heard it where people just have like yourself, Marvin, a lot of people they'll just have cars fully dedicated just for that purpose. And then I've heard people who, hey, they got their own, personal vehicle and they work from home, so they put the thing on the car on Turo while they working from home. And as
Uh-huh.
people, what I'm saying, they'll rent it out that way. So
Yeah.
I always thought that piece was interesting. So how does it work? Which and these are just questions that kind of came up throughout the group. But how does it work with insurance? So like I have car insurance for mine. So say I'm either renting a car or you're about to rent one out. Like, does a person have to carry a certain amount of insurance, or do you have to carry your policy different? How does that
So it,
impact?
So with insurance, I carry well, I find most of my cars are financed, so
Okay.
I have loans on them, and a few of them I pay them outright basically,
Uh-huh.
and but I carry insurance on all my cars, personal insurance on all my cars. However, with Turo, and also just so people know, there's other apps, there's other like platforms where you can rent out cars. There's
Okay.
there's a few different platforms. But with Turo specifically, they provide insurance. They provide different insurance packages or insurance levels.
Okay.
For my first year when I first joined, I did a 75-25% split where I took 75% of the revenue or the profits and they took the other 25%, but they provided insurance in that as well. So
Mhm.
it made sense. Basically, that package that I had originally, it came with only a $250 deductible for each vehicle. It covered personal liability or other people's properties up to 750 grand,
Okay.
and your personal property, I believe, is 250 grand or something like that.
Okay.
So it was very, very well worth it. Doing a 75-25 split. But since I've acquired more cars, I've gotten commercial insurance, and
Okay.
so I'm able to do a little higher of a percentage on Turo. So they have a
Okay.
90% option, 85% option, 80% option, and it just gives you different insurance packages. You see what I mean? So
Cool.
that's
So
how that works.
so you've been doing it. When did you start?
I started May of 2021, so it'll be a
Okay.
year in
So
May
you've
of
been
this
doing
year.
it a year. So what when you look back to May of 2021 and you say, "Hey, I think I'm gonna rent my car out on Turo or any one of these apps," and definitely we'll talk about some of those other apps. What would you say you would probably do different?
Um, so I would have great question. I would have probably got more cars.
Earlier,
So
before you like
yeah,
coming
yep.
in. Okay.
hmm
So how
So
was that? You said you got let's see, you said you got how
I
many cars
started
now?
out. I started out. So I have at this very moment I have 10. I was up to
10.
12. Yeah, I was up to 12, but I had a couple. I had one that was totaled out and one that
Okay.
I rented out personally off
Right.
Turo, and something happened to it. So that's the difference. So I lost those two cars, but I did get
Okay.
paid for the one that I lost on the trip,
Okay.
and I just took the L on the other one.
Okay.
Anyways, to start out though, I uh, I built my credit up, so that's
Okay.
very important.
Okay.
I had great credit, and I was able to get pre-approvals on different loans for
Okay.
different auto loans, basically.
Okay.
I got 10 pre-approvals, but I only went and got 6 vehicles to start with. Actually, I went and got 4. And then
Okay.
I went and got 2 more like maybe a month later. So maybe a
Now
month or 2 later.
And I guess that's a huge distinction that I just want people to know. Like when you're doing borrowing for vehicles versus borrowing for a home, borrowing for vehicles is a whole lot more liberal than as
Yeah.
far as
Well, yeah.
saying the time and requirements type thing. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different things that would not fly if you was trying to get a mortgage. They would make you wait 2 years off back. Saying they want
Uh-huh.
certain
Yeah.
documents. But when you get in the vehicle, how that income comes in, they a lot more lenient on those things, which depending on how these things go, if it's working, if Turo and all these places working, because
You know, actually, that I mean that's completely true what you just said about as far as like the difference between a house and buying houses and buying cars. But actually it's all relationships.
yeah,
So even if you're into real estate, after you finance houses or borrow money for houses from certain entities or certain banks, it can be just as simple, if not
yeah,
simpler,
you're
than
going
buying
back. That's
cars. You know
repeat
what I'm saying?
business. Yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just about establishing a relationship and being a good partner in that
yeah.
relationship. You know what I mean? That's what I try to tell people because um people like, hey, man,
Yeah.
how you
But the
able to.
auto, I would say, is bigger. Is that relationship piece goes higher than well, you can do it in banking. It's just I'm talking about just legally, there's not as much red tape. But you can do it. Like
Right.
if you somebody that like rental properties or whatever, you know what I mean? They may not
Mm-hmm.
stick you on, oh, you gotta be in the house a year. Nah, not really. Those little things. But income
Uh-huh.
wise, they can't get around that. You know what I mean? Now, auto, you got a finance manager that, say he's got the keys to the bank. He's like, hey, this is good.
Yeah.
We straight. You can keep rolling through him constantly,
Uh-huh.
especially as far as being a small business owner, because that's one of the harder ones.
But even with auto loans, man, it's not that simple because you know if depending on the dealership that you go to, if you go to a Toyota or a Honda or a Chevy,
Right.
whatever, yeah,
Good point.
they have their own in-house financing, but that's still just one entity. So
Right.
in a case like mine, where you're trying to strike out on multiple cars, you have to go through
Right.
different banks. It's not just going to be,
Yeah.
unless you just have phenomenal credit, you're putting down 100 grand. You know what I mean? Maybe Chevy will finance you 5 or 6 cars, but when you did it how I did, and you go through different entities, it's about establishing. First of all, showing that you can establish relationships with people or
Right.
creditors or lenders, and that you're trustworthy. So that's why I always come back to the credit piece
You're right. The
because
credit does, which we could definitely agree on that. It's definitely going to be vital for this because
yes, yes.
what are so you said when you started you would have so when you started did you start with four? You saying you would have started with four?
No, I started with 4. I
Okay, you
got
started
10
with four.
pre-approvals. I got 10
Okay,
pre-approvals. So I could have went and got 10, which
okay,
that's what I wish I would have done. But see,
okay. Just
as
took a bigger
confident.
leap.
Right, exactly,
Okay,
exactly. Because of because of how it's been going. If I
okay,
listen, any business you're gonna take some bumps and bruises, so you're
right,
gonna go through some growing pains and some learning lessons. So I've definitely been going through those. It's not all sweet. Don't get
right,
it twisted.
right,
However, however, seeing the positives of it, they
right.
far outweigh the negatives. So if I
Right.
just had just gone and took that leap and gotten those 10 cars instead of the 4, I just feel like I could have grown and accelerated the business a lot more. Which I'm not tripping about it. But you just asked what I would have done
What
different,
did
and I think
different?
I just
Right.
yeah. So that's what I think I
That
would have
makes
done.
sense.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to touch base on and definitely want to be respectful of your time. So definitely want to talk about some of the challenges. But I mean,
Yeah.
people like to know if you don't mind sharing what was I know average stats were saying, hey, um, most people on Turo make about $450, like for a car. And I'm based off the stat, it was like per month. And then the stat kind of went on to say, as you get a little bit more consistent, it can really go to 1,000, 2,000. What have you seen that you're in it a little bit better? What have you seen with everything that's going on in the economy and just your area? Because obviously area matters
Yeah.
as far as what's needed.
Um.
What's a
Um.
good profit margin even for the car?
Yeah. I would say. It's not as cut and dry. because it just depends on how you buy the car, what you're paying per month to maintain the car and things like that. And so I would say 450 is a good place to start, or try to achieve. I mean, I'm talking about 450 in profit. You're
Right.
definitely gonna make 450, revenue, but profit, minus expenses and everything, that's a good place to start on one car.
Right.
And then as you go along, you learn different tricks and different add-ons that you can add, like unlimited mileage, or if you have a car seat, if you have kids and stuff like that, you can add those different kind of things and and get a little bit more
Just
earnings
like the rental,
yeah, exactly.
the
Exactly.
premiums, so to speak, navigation,
Exactly.
all those different things. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
then so what what would you say is? I try to think how best to phrase it. So if you make it for okay, does car matter? Does car type matter based off the platform?
It
Just like rental.
definitely does. It
Okay,
definitely does. And so, and the common misconception is that if you get a luxury vehicle, you're gonna make all this money. You're gonna make a
right,
bunch of money because a Lamborghini, it costs
right,
$1,000 a day. But if you're paying $890 a month for it,
right.
you're not making $1,000 a day. You're making 110. But then when you
Mhm.
take out the gas, and then if you have to deliver it and get an Uber or whatever, see, these are like hidden costs that people
Okay,
don't realize. You know what I mean? Because you still have to maintain these cars. You gotta deliver them with full tanks of gas. You don't have to. I just like to. You know what I
right.
mean? Just to be more professional. So I
Surface,
deliver them with
yeah.
full tanks. Make sure my oil changes are done. People get flat tires. You have to go buy tires. You know what I mean? Windshield wipers. That's a big one. I didn't realize how often you have to get windshield wipers. Like real talk.
Like everybody just can't see and drive.
You know what I mean? So these are hidden expenses that people don't see. You know what I mean? And
Right,
so people I get people telling me like, man, you want to slow down a little bit. I'm like, no, I don't want to slow down. You know what I
right,
mean? Like, because the more assets that you get, the more money you could potentially make, obviously. You know what
right.
I'm saying?
Because you got more
But
purse.
again, yeah, exactly. But again, people don't see these hidden costs. So they just, from the outside looking in, it's like, man, if you had 6 cars and let me count your pockets, you making $1,000 a car, you making good money right there. So what you need, you know what I mean? Bro, mind your business.
Right, there's more to it.
Right, there's more
Yeah.
to it than that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm trying to grow my business as I am. But yeah, so yeah, there's just those things to consider, but car definitely matters. And so that's why I struck out and got more economical, more standard vehicles to start with.
Okay.
And now I'm planning on not shifting, but adding more luxury and more higher end vehicles
Okay.
to my fleet as well. But I basically started out with 2 compact vehicles and 2 full-size
Yeah, I thought I
vehicles.
like kind of smaller vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
remember that.
2 compacts and 2 full-size vehicles. And then later on, I got another standard size and then another compact vehicle. So that's pretty much the 6 that I started out with. And then here recently, I went and just cashed out or paid pay outright for cars for 3 of them, and then I went and financed a few more. So I'm just trying to make it happen, man. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean you making it happen. You in there, like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
better than sitting there watching. So I mean, you'll learn. You know, what I mean, you ain't coming up on year 2, so
Yeah.
you'll be quite all right. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that when you think about starting a business, any business, like you said, you want to get a mentor, whether it's paid, unpaid, however it is, you want to try to do your research, and you don't want to just totally jump in the pool like that, especially if it's something that has a large cost to it. What is financially? You said you got your credit up, but when you think about what you've learned and what you've seen, even with just American type cars, what would you say if I was starting or if I was going to jump into this business, this model, 3, 4 cars? Should I have or should I try to save money too? Or do you think it cash flows out to where anything that you've seen come up, you can mostly cash flow it through the process? What would you suggest? If it is a bit of a slush fund, what would you suggest in that manner?
So well, like what I tell people all the time is, man, with there being a car shortage, really any car is going to go. it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter the car type or the market that you're in or anything like that. Like if you have
because it's
a
short.
right, if you have a well-running vehicle and it's priced correctly, somebody's gonna rent it. You know what I mean? So you know, to answer your question, um, I would just consider what my goals are. You know what I mean? If my goal is to make a certain number, and I know, okay, I live in a place where this type of car will rent consistently, and and I know I can keep it out, then you want to consider those type of things, and whatever the metrics are for you personally. Also consider things that you would want to drive personally when they aren't being rented. You know what I mean? So like some people wouldn't want to drive a Chevy Spark, which I have one of those, or a Nissan Versa. You know what I mean? So they would be hesitant to get those kind of cars because they feel like, okay, if it's not rented, I don't want to drive that myself. So why would I get it? You know what I mean?
Right.
I again, I'm business oriented, so it's like, okay, but that
It's a car.
I
It
might
give
not be
you,
in love with this car,
yeah,
but guess what?
it's a
It's gonna
ride.
make a lot of money,
Yeah.
and I'm only paying. And then this is the good part about being in the business that I was in, because I knew I sold cars. I worked at Enterprise. I sold cars, and I also rented. I rented for the first 2 years and then sold cars for the last 4 years. But basically, I knew the ins and outs of financing a vehicle, like what it would cost, per month. When you're financing a certain amount. And so I figured my train of thought is, okay, how what vehicle can I pay as little for per month, but I know it'll rent on a consistent basis
Mm.
and make that money to pay for itself, but then have overages as well. You know what I mean? So when I was going in, knowing that I was financing cars, I'm like, okay, if I can keep my payments between 250 to 350 a month with the bank, not including insurance, but just 250 to 350 a month, I know I can make some good money if I have enough assets. So that was my mentality going in. Now, again, any car is going to be rented, but a Nissan Versa that's making $45 a day and the note is only $20 is gonna, I mean, the note is only $200 a month, is gonna go a lot further profit wise than a Mercedes Benz, that
Because it's
the
not as
note is.
often.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And just because you're gonna be paying more for it as well. Most people, depending on your credit, how much you put down on it, things like that, you're gonna be paying $500, $600, $700 for a Benz. And so, if it's only making 900, then you're making, what I mean, whatever you scrape out of that, because again, you got gas, you have oil changes, you have things like that, you have maintenance that goes into it, as opposed to, again, Nissan Versa, Chevy Spark, what else I got, Ford Fiesta. These cars I'm paying $200 a month for, but they're still making $1,000 or $800 a month,
And
between
they build
800
like
to a thousand.
them Ford Focuses, them jokers.
Exactly,
Like
exactly, exactly.
they'll ride to 150 miles,
You feel
150,000
me? You
miles
feel me?
without a.
So, right,
Okay, I
right,
follow you.
exactly. So those are the type
So
of
you
things
weren't
that
as
I.
concerned about something coming up, or because of the type of car and likely the expense that the car have, you're like, I could probably cash flow through it. So you wasn't as concerned about having $5,000-$6,000 in cash if something comes up. And then these
Right.
are newer too. So
Exactly.
these
Exactly.
are newer, and so I'm just trying to think out the school of thought. You were like, well, if it's a newer car, it has a little bit more durability, so I got some time for it to build
And
up its own
warranty.
case.
Yeah,
Right.
these
Oh,
cars,
okay.
they have they
Got
have
you.
low miles, they have
Got you.
warranties. Call that came through. My bad. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then I can't hear you. Say something.
Yeah. I got you.
Man, I can't hear you. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm on mute. Can you hear me?
No, you should be good.
All right. I'm hosting unmuted. Okay.
You should be good.
Man, I'm sorry about that. I had got a call and now I can't hear nothing.
Yeah, it'll mess you up. It'll mess you up.
Hold on, I'm plug my headphones and plug them back in. Hello? Can you say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Man, I can't hear nothing. I'm sorry, man.
Nah, no problem.
I don't know what happened. Cam, audio.
So drop it, come back in.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, my brother.
Drop it, come back in. Let me see if I can get you to drop it, come back in.
I can't hear nothing you say.
Let's see. Yeah, drop it. Oh, yeah, it was getting good, guys. It was definitely getting good. Let me know in the comments if you're liking the podcast, if you're on the video. If you haven't already, while he's coming back, take a moment, share this video with a friend. Like if you can, invite your friends to the Money Talks Facebook group. Those do all those things. We definitely want to try to help you reach your financial goals and let you know about the opportunities out here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you now.
Okay. So that going back just to catch up, it was you bought newer cars, but because of the type of cars, they were a little bit more durable. They had warranties, and so when you thought, and obviously your experience helped you make a little bit more sound decision, along with the coaching you received and the wisdom you got just from researching, and so all that you kind of bundled up and went in to the business. Okay. So you weren't as concerned with the startup part.
You know what you just described? You know how they say, you know the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child?
Right.
That concept can be applied to pretty much everything because, you know, nothing is done linearly. Nothing is just done like straight.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it takes all these things and pretty much to kind of cultivate and get one finished product. So that's exactly what it was though, man.
So obviously you kind of mentioned earlier, had an accident, had a situation where it wouldn't didn't quite work out that you would like. So when you think about any business, whether you're renting a house, anything where you're dealing with an asset and you have somebody in it or somebody's utilizing it, however you want to look at it, there's risk attached to it. So what would you say were some of the things that, again, you don't know what you don't know, but that you've seen over this time you've been doing it was, okay, number one, I didn't know this could happen, but number two, it's not as bad as I thought, or it's worse.
Well, that's funny because I have a rental property. Well, I had two and I have one now. Okay. And I also have the cars that I rent. So I deal with that. But the biggest thing for me is to, and one of my mentors actually told me this or coaches this, lose the emotional attachment to these things, to these products. Yeah, they're just things, you know what I mean? And so I think people's biggest problem and their biggest detriment is that they have these emotional attachments. You know, people look at a Mercedes Benz and like, man, I'm not about to rent out my Benz, you know, to somebody that I don't know. You know what I mean? Yeah. But for me, it's a money-making asset. It's a money-making machine. And so, like, literally. And so and so that's my mindset. And over the years, I've been able to control it a little bit more. Now, I won't lie and say I've always just thought like that, but I've learned that, look,
just a thing.
If you're gonna be in business, that's gonna be a risk.
It's gonna happen in business. I think that's a huge lesson. Yeah. Every business has challenges. The only problem is, are you mad that it happened? Or are you mad that you can't solve it?
And now check this out. This is what people get mad at me and they don't want to be friends with me anymore. Because there's also risk. People think there's risk being an entrepreneur. There's risk being an employee.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's just like what risk are you willing to take? Are you willing to deal with? You know what I mean? For me, I wasn't willing to risk trading my time for money at somebody else's corporation for you know X amount of years of my life and still having the option or the probability or I'm losing the word I'm looking for of being fired though, or you know what I mean? Like
at any moment, something is changed, and I'm not your favorite no more.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So for me, that's a big risk, And then also, you know what I mean? You just never know what could happen. You know what I mean? You might be making 100 grand at a job or 80,
Right.
whatever you might be making. But then what happens if you break your leg? Or what happens if you get sick? Or your significant other gets sick? Or when somebody dies? You know what I mean? So there's risk involved with everything. My thing was just, okay, which risk are you willing to take? And then I just made my decision from there.
And yeah, that's a big one, man. When you think about the business, I mean, with anybody that's trying to go in business, I think they're more afraid of what they don't know can happen. That's why they try to go to courses, and that's why they try to talk to all these people, because they're trying to get a concept of what's going to happen to me. Well, the fact is, you don't know what's going to happen to you. Even the person who's coaching you can't tell you
Exactly.
what's going to happen. The only thing in business
Exactly.
is just about problems is going to happen. It will happen. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what type of business you're in, you're going to have a problem. Can you
Exactly.
fix it? Is that a problem that you're going to um that's going to kill you? You know what I mean? So
You know what? You took the words out of my mouth, but I was just about to go back to, and I always relate things back to sayings. But there's
yeah,
another saying: if it doesn't kill you, it makes you strong. Whatever
yeah.
doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
And
So,
that's why
like,
people like long-term businesses or people who've been in business a long time, not because the product is oh so good. All that happens is they figured out how to solve their problem with each challenge.
and
Why?
kept moving and kept
And they
moving
kept
forward.
moving. That's the only thing. And so after so long, not only do like you've always believed in yourself, but now
Mm-hmm.
all these other people believe in you because of, hey, you've been
Yeah,
doing it for 20 years. So they must
yeah.
know what they're talking about. They just seen everything. No, they haven't. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
can prepare for this, right? Nobody can prepare for the pandemic.
Nope.
So those who were willing to adjust, make those moves, they survived. Those who
Yep.
couldn't, they gone.
Yeah. People,
Jobs,
man,
businesses, all that.
one thing I used to hear all the time when I was a car salesman, that just irritated me. It just irritated me. And like people come in and they be like, well, I don't want to Ford. Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, why? When's the last time you driven a Ford? Well, my mama had a Ford. She told me not to get a Ford. You know what I mean?
And like the car
Or
in 1998, still,
yeah,
you think
yeah.
they still got the same problems?
I'm like, listen.
Oh, his theme went out on us. Hang tight, guys. Hang tight a little bit. We're about to wrap up. I'm sorry, but I definitely appreciate y'all who stayed on this long. If you just came in, make sure you again share the video, invite your friends to the group. Um, let's see. Let me check. Let me check. My uh, my baby is telling me it's almost time for me to be done. Let me see. There's some gems being dropped there. Yeah, having some technical difficulty, guys. So, like I said, I definitely appreciate you guys joining in. I'm gonna go ahead and stop it today, and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the conversation. I'll reach out, see if we can get them back. Maybe do a part two if you like this content, if you enjoyed it. Guys, I appreciate you being in the group. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Money Talks channel. If you're here in the Facebook group, please invite your friends to the Facebook group. You can accomplish anything you set your mind to. Honestly. I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.